Oh, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to our technical session titled. So I'd like to welcome you all to our technical session titled NDP3 JISA project under sub-theme 1, water security for sustainable development. I hope you find it interesting, informative, and enriched by fruitful discussions. My name is Ahmed El Hadi, and I'm an assistant professor in civil engineering in the British University in Egypt. And also, I'm involved as a short-term planning expert with the McDonald consultant in NDP3 JISA project. It really gives me a great pleasure to be the facilitator of this session with our great event, Cairo Water Week. In this session, we will be having an insight on NDP3 JISA project, highlighting its basic information, interventions, and major practices. As a note, presentations might be quite jam-packed with much information, so the discussions will take place after each presentation. And for better control of timing, we will be receiving your questions and inquiries through the Q&A window to be answered by our panelists. So as a backup, if any question is left unanswered due to time limitations, no worries. We will post its answer or response along with a copy of the presentation on the Cairo Water Week website for your reference later. Okay, before moving forward, let me honorably introduce our esteemed panelists. We have first Dr. Sandra Wechner, who is the head of climate and resource protection sector for North Africa at KfW Development Bank, and also serves as the task manager of NDP3 JISA project. Also, we have Engineer Walid Haïi, who is the head of Central Department of Water Resources and Uses of the Planning Sector at the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. He is also the head of the Egyptian Dutch Water Advisory Panel Unit. In addition, Engineer Walid serves as a member of the Cairo Water Week High Committee. And finally, Engineer Walid is the PIU Director for JISA project. So I hope, or I wish I didn't forget any title, Engineer Walid. Also, we have honorably Engineer Mohammed Al-Absi, who is the Vice Chairman of Egyptian Public Authority for Drainage Projects, EBAD-P, for Upper Egypt sectors, and also serves as the PIU Director for NDP3 project. We have also Mr. Rob Newhouse, who is an international planning expert within McDonald and NDP3 JISA project. And finally, we have our great speaker, Dr. Hank Ritzma, who is an international irrigation and drainage expert within Wageningen University in NDP3 JISA project. Actually, Dr. Hank, I'm aware that you are facing some right challenges nowadays, and despite these challenges, you could make yourself available for our session. So I would like deeply to thank you very much for your dedication and being with us in this session today. Now, I would gently ask her good self, Dr. Sandra Wechner, for opening the session and to give us an introductory speech. Dr. Sandra, over to you. Over to you, Dr. Sandra.
So, yeah, everybody can hear me, I hope so. Good morning,
yes, go
everybody.
ahead, please.
Yeah, so on behalf of KfW and the EU, we are very pleased that this event could take place today in the framework of the Cairo Water Week, despite the challenging circumstances posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. And our colleagues from Ministry of Water, Resources and Irrigation, they have found a solution to bring us together and to create a platform for exchange on the very relevant topic of water security in every region. So we are really happy that modern communication technologies allow us today to take part in this event, despite being 100 or 1,000 kilometers away from each other. So of course, technology cannot 100% replace personal contact and exchange. So I do hope that we will see each other personally at the next year's Cairo Water Week. The National Drainage Program 3 aims to improve the livelihood of 875,000 farmers through investments in drainage sector. So the program, which is financed by the government of Egypt, by EU and KfW, was selected as priority under the joint integrated sector approach and includes a component to support MWRI in its efforts to further develop JISA as a tool for prioritizing investment. So I'm therefore very happy that today's session offers the opportunity to exchange on both topics, drainage and JISA. So I look forward to both presentations and to a lively exchange between the participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sandra, for your welcoming statement. And I would ask right now Engineer Walid Haïi to give us a general brief on the NDP3 JISA project. Engineer Walid, it's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you all for being here with us in this very interesting meeting, I would say, or I hope at least. Just to give a brief on JISA, or the Joint Integrated Sector Approach. It is actually some of the thinking that the ministry is trying to apply, actually, to enhance, in general, the investment planning and how to link it to the strategic planning. We have a strategy in general, which is the National Water Resources Plan, which is addressing the whole water sector. But also we need to link the actual investments, the actual projects that are implemented to those strategic objectives addressed in the National Water Resources Plan. And starting with the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, so more focusing on the irrigation sector. Actually, this study has been carried out for some time now, and now it's time to adopt that mechanism in the ministry. And we are lucky that actually we also have that move to the new administrative capital, which is more digitalizing system there. So also that will be very helpful to apply that system and test it during the transition period in the move to the new capital, but also there when we are there in the new capital. So in general, the approach is trying to, as I said, to enhance that connection between the investment and the strategic objectives, and that will of course need some of the capacity building of the different planning entities in the ministry. We have 8 contracting entities in the ministry, so we need to raise the capacity of those planning entities. We need to also to have the tools, not only the training, but also the tools that will support the staff in applying such approach that aiming at the end to modernize the irrigation sector in Egypt in general. And what I want also to say that we are not starting from scratch, but we are building on what already exists. So we have some systems for coordination and cooperation, either with the different planning entities in Egypt, so Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of International Cooperation, also the different partners, but we are trying to enhance that coordination mechanisms to better limited resources in general, financial resources, because water sector is always under pressure when we talk about financial resources. So this is very important to have a better coordination that really make the best out of those resources. What is also important that we are developing a unified investment planning system, which I think we'll hear more about that from the presentation of Rob. But this is a very good tool that will help us really in addressing again investment planning, having some sort of a pipeline for projects that can be always prioritized to be financed either from the government of Egypt or from the development partners, so that pipeline can always shared with development partners, so that we can really prioritize projects, finance projects which has priority according to the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. I think this is more or less brief, but we'll hear more details from Rob in the presentation. Thank you very much for being here, and over to Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Engineer Walid, for your informative and focused general brief. Actually, it's concluded mainly the basic information about our project, NDP3 JISA project. And now, before moving forward to our first great presenter, Engineer Rob, let me first honorably introduce Engineer Rob. Engineer Rob is an expert in water and national resources management with Euroconsult McDonald and holds a master's degree in environmental and agricultural systems science from Wageningen University. He combines expertise from Netherlands and from Africa, Asia, Europe, and North and Central America. Since 2011, Mr. Rob regularly works in Egypt, where he supported the National Water Resource Plan, the EWRMP, first ever National Water Energy Food Security Nexus study, also institutional reform, and the joint integrated sector approach to investment planning in the water and irrigation sector. And currently, he is supporting the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in strengthening planning and MNDE capacities for JISA and NDP3. Please join me welcoming Mr. Rob. Mr. Rob, it's over to you, sir. The mic is
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed, and also thank you so much for the introductions, Dr. Sandra and Engineer Walid. It's a great pleasure to be here with you virtually today, even though not in person. Let me share my screen and deliver my presentation. Here we go. It should be on your screens now. I'm speaking to you about the joint integrated sector approach for investment planning in water resources management, irrigation, and drainage. My name indeed is Rob Nieuwenhuis. I'm planning expert and M&E advisor for this project. The National Drainage Program 3/Joint Integrated Sector Approach is an integrated project financed by the European Union and the German-Egyptian Development Cooperation, implemented by KfW, with the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, and in particular also the planning sector for the JISA part. Implementation consultant is Mod McDonald, my company, as lead partner, together with Wageningen University and Research, North-South Consultants Exchange, and Saleh and Hegab. Some basic information first. The NDP3 JISA is a joint project consisting of two work packages. There's work package 1, NDP3, and the main objectives of this project are to increase agricultural yields through improved efficiency of subsurface drainage and surface drainage infrastructure, developing strategic proposals for PVC pipe factories, sustainable lowering of the groundwater table, which then leads to the improved agricultural production, also improving investment measures, embracing JISA principles, and strengthening capacities of EPAD. Work Package 2, JISA, has as its main objective to enhance the investment effectiveness in Maori infrastructure. And we do that through capacity building, enhancing communication, and improving MIS and M&E systems. The NDP3 project is implemented with EPAD, and Engineer Mohammed Al-Lapsi is the PIU manager in EPAD. Team leader for both components is Mr. Robert Rowbottom, my colleague at Mod McDonald. There's a large project budget for the two components together, and the project duration is 6 years. We started in January this year, and the project lasts until December 2025. The second work package is JISA, and that is implemented mainly with the planning sector as direct counterpart, with the PIU that is headed by Engineer Walid Hai, that's who just provided the introductory remarks. For the rest, all the information here is the same. So let me go to the next slide. JISA at the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation is all about integrated planning throughout the ministry. So all of the implementing agencies, the planning sector, irrigation department, etc., have to join up their planning systems. But also on the other side of the table, it's also about joint funding between the development partners and the government of Egypt. And KfW is taking a lead role in this, along with the EU, but definitely the government of Egypt is in the driving seat. Jointly, we have to arrive at a prioritized sector-wide investment portfolio. And in project planning, the project planning cycle is, or project management cycle is adhered to. And it starts from the plans of the 8 MWI implementing agencies. Under the umbrella of the National Water Resources Plan and the Government Plan, project concept notes are developed for each individual big project. And all of these concept notes are fed into a decision support system, which processes these and leads to a priority ranking of these individual projects. And the output of the system is a series of priority project packages, which subsequently are transformed into bankable investment projects. And these projects may be about bricks and mortar, so physical projects, but also knowledge projects and planning tools, like the current JISA phase. Projects are funded from the governmental budget as well as from development partner group loans and grants, and together with the government in the driving seat, this leads to realization of the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness. JISA has been implemented, or the implementation of JISA started already some time ago. In 2012-13, the first phase of JISA was started. And the results of that phase were a comprehensive definition and design of JISA as a coordination mechanism to harmonize investment planning in the irrigation sector, to strengthen capacity for joint planning, implementation, and monitoring of investment, to promote water sector modernization, and to enhance donor cooperation and coordination for investments in the irrigation sector in Egypt. A year later, in 2014, the second phase resulted in the development, and I hear some additional sounds. Maybe some people can better mute their microphones. The second phase resulted in development and application of tools and mechanisms for improved MWI capacity for project planning, monitoring and evaluation, a dynamic portfolio of investment opportunities, 65 concept notes, and a decision support system for investment planning prioritization across the ministry. The decision support system is roughly built up as follows. On the left-hand side, we see plans and programs with the NWRP as the apex, the top program, the ministry's 5-year plan, and all kinds of plans from the sectors, from implementing agencies. Jointly, they have a pipeline of projects for which project concept notes are written and inserted into a project's database. A multi-criteria assessment process with the criteria as you see on the right-hand side and their weights leads to a prioritized list of projects which subsequently the ministry makes investment decisions about. And they produced a series of investment packages that can then next be financed by the government and by development partners. The JISA machinery ideally runs at least once every year. Concept notes can be added every year. Criteria and weights can be changed, but in principle should be aligned with the policies that prevail. And the prioritization mill can be run to come up with investment packages per year, but also if more budget becomes available, this can be run at any time. It's a dynamic portfolio. Some examples from the portfolio include a couple of projects that are already being implemented, such as NDP3 JISA, which is funded by KfW and the EU, as well as local government funds. There's the new Day2 barrage and the rehabilitation of Zifta barrage, which is funded again also by the Egyptian government with donor support from JICA. There's integrated coastal zone management and shoreline master plan for the North Coast with GCF support, and also entirely locally funded projects run through JISA. such as the local drainage reuse and flash flood protection projects. One of the projects in the pipeline still is a GIS-based asset management system. That's still in the concept note stage, but that should further enhance the possibilities of making the best possible decisions in investment planning. JISA is a lot about coordination and integration. So the organization of JISA between the Ministry of Water Resources, Irrigation and partners is a quite complex one. The planning sector that you see at the bottom part here is at the core of it. They organize the coordination between all the implementing agencies within the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. And they have also the key role in relationships with the donor community and with the Ministry of International Cooperation. Also, coordination with other ministries within the government of Egypt takes place from the planning sector, and that is with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, for example, and the Ministry of Planning, but also any other relevant ministries, because water is everywhere. Within the planning sector, the project is run by the JISA coordination unit, of which Engineer Walid is the PIU director, and he and his unit report to the project steering committee, which is chaired by the head of the planning sector. There's a large TA team of the consultants that I introduced already, led by our team leader Robert Rowbottom and Deputy Dr. Ayman Kadir, and a whole series of local and international experts support them. The intervention logic of JISA runs from tasks and activities to outputs, which in turn lead to outcomes and to contribute to achieving the objectives and the ultimate goal. And we have translated all the tasks, outputs, and outcomes and objectives in an organized framework that you see currently on screen, where on the left-hand side there's a big chunk of tasks, outputs, and outcomes around the JISA process, and on the right-hand side there is a series of interventions, of tasks around enhancing JISA skills and tools. Jointly, they are needed to achieve the objectives. And among the tools that are being developed, Engineer Walid already mentioned this, is the Unified Investment Planning and Monitoring System. And that starts from the JISA DSS that we developed in phase 2. But that should be integrated with the other elements of planning mechanisms, planning tools that are available in the planning sector and the implementing agencies already. And that should be unified and integrated so that it's all much more efficient in the end. And that efficiency is not only important for this ministry, but it forms also part and parcel of the overall e-government of Egypt. Typical building blocks of the Uipms are around data sources, a website portal for concept notes, an online form for concept note appraisal. Geodata is very important, mobile data collection, etc. And all of these different data sources are then analyzed in the next step. The decision support system, prioritizing investments, and the monitoring and evaluation, etc. Analyzing all of the projects. And these data need to be visualized. Again, in a geodatabase of investment opportunities, but also in online dashboards, which can be customized for the different stakeholders in JISA. Obviously, also Government of Egypt and development partner websites also will provide details of projects that are being tendered, for example. You easily understand there's a lot of communication involved in this whole process. And for that reason, we're developing a 4-layer communication plan. And that communication starts within the implementing agencies. Next level is communication within the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. The 3rd layer is the communication with other ministries and beneficiaries. And the fourth layer is with the international donor community in order to enhance the investment levels. There are plenty of challenges, and Dr. Sandra already linked to the current COVID challenge that exists. And that is the reason why at current this Cairo Water Week is being held virtually online instead of a live meeting. And let's all hope that next year we'll all be together in Cairo again. But there's more challenges. Also, the transition to the new administrative capital is a challenge, and the scattered locations of the different implementing agencies was a challenge already before COVID started and before the move to the new capital was becoming more immediate. But you also see that this phase has a smile on it because we also have solutions. And a big solution is in digitalization, as for the current Cairo Water Week 2020. So I'm very convinced that jointly we will be able to come up with the solutions to face these challenges in order to arrive at full JISA. One sector, one approach for integrated planning and joint funding. I thank you very much, Shukran Gamil, and I hand back to the chair of this session, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Rob, for your focused and informative presentations and your usual keeping of the time frame of the presentation. So from your presentation, Engineer Rob, we can conclude that JISA 3 will be the core of Maori for investments deployments and principle, and it's all about a decision support system for enhancing the prioritization and optimization of Maori investments to make sure that everything in the right place and that the tangible and intangible returns are maximized. This will be through a common data environment, linking all Maori's entities together with an efficient communication channels in between and further among all other relevant ministers and stakeholders. Also, capacitate staff and saving required tools and software are among the major interventions that guarantee the effectiveness and sustainability of the developed decision support system. And also, and finally, performing a robust and dynamic M&E measures to ensure achieving the defined goals are also routinely applied. Well, great. So now let me please present the questions received from our great attendees to be answered by Mr. Rob. Just let me check the questions and the answers. Okay. Mr. Rob, we actually have a question with regard to the prioritization and the process and mechanism of the prioritization. What about the criteria that you are going to follow for such kind of prioritization, and whether it is only a kind of prioritization or also it has something with optimization in terms of the constraints that the ministry might have. So it could have also some sorts of optimization tools or something. So could you elaborate more, please, on such prioritization, and if there is any kind of optimization, please give us a brief or more elaboration on this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, and thank you, kind person who asked this question. As I have shown in the presentation, and I won't pull it back up, we already developed in 2014 a series of prioritization criteria. Quite a long list, I believe. We had 15 criteria or so, and we attached weights to that to come up with a priority ranking of the projects. Typically, the actual scoring of this was done using expert judgment, because indeed there was no such thing as an automated or digitally supported optimization model or or something else. The main constraints definitely were around the money available within the government and within the development partner group. In the current phase of JISA, definitely developing or moving towards better optimization technologies would be on the agenda. And we still have to find out how far we can go with that, because it's a real computer-assisted optimization is a very complex process. You need a lot of data for that, and you need to have a lot of information about the value and the role of each piece of hardware, of infrastructure in the whole overall system. So a systemic approach would be needed eventually. We're not there yet, and this phase of JISA might start the development of such a systems approach, but definitely also there would be more and more to be developed at a later stage. I think I can leave it with that for the moment.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rob, for your answer. And again, we have a question here from Ms. Mariam Alam. With regard, she's asking about the water resource management plan that you are referring to. She asks which one, because her understanding is that there was one until 2017 and another from 2037 and the last one 2063. So also again, Mr. Rob, could you elaborate more on the National Water Resource Plan that you are referring to and the different stages of this National Water Resource Plan? Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, and thank you, Ms. Mariam. The NWRP or the main umbrella plan that is guiding the selection of measures of projects in this current phase is the NWRP 2017 to 2037. That's NWRP number 2. The previous NWRP was the guideline basically for the previous JISA phases, and the 65 projects that were prioritized at that stage in 2014 were really following the priorities of NWRP 1997-2017. But the current umbrella plan that we follow is the one for 2037, and that's the most practical guidance that we adhere to in JISA at this moment.
Okay, great. One more question with regard to the current practices within the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in terms of such investment prioritization, and how JISA will add to these practices, and also the addition to JISA 1 and 2 that JISA 3 would complement. So to be clearer, it's about the question is about the current practices of the ministry and how JISA is going to add or enhance such practices in a manner maybe of integration or something. And the second is the main additions for JISA 1 and 2 that JISA 3 will contribute to the ministry. Okay.
I think I can provide one integrated answer for this. In JISA 1, only the principles were set out. JISA 2 collected the existing project concept notes from the 8 implementing agencies and scored them and ranked them, prioritized them according to the criteria that existed at that moment. The horizontal collaboration between individual implementing agencies was not considered in JISA 2 yet, but now definitely in this phase, and that's also new to this phase. More and more we are going to focus also on that horizontal collaboration between the implementing agencies. And that should not only lead to better identification of what kind of projects would be needed, but also it would help prioritizing these projects, because one project of the irrigation department might be crucial for a project of EPAT to have better water reuse, for example, in irrigation and drainage. So the interlinkages between the different implementing agencies, they need to be better taken into account in the current JISA phase. Integration is really key.
Okay, great. Maybe
Rahman,
one last
if I may add to that, just
yes, please. Yes, please, Engineer, go ahead.
Yeah. Also in JISA 2, just to add, in JISA 2, also we try to assess what is needed actually to adopt the system. And based on that, we have defined some of the technical assistance needed for applying, adopting the system. And this is what we are trying to do in that phase of JISA. So the first two phases were more like study and then defining what should be done. With the test run was the concept notes approach at that time. And now we want to have that as a part of the teamwork of the ministry. And around that, we need the tools that we really apply that system in the midst. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. So it's all about a series of building upon building from JISA 1, JISA 2, from studies, from analyses, and from developing systems and enhancing the systems and considering new conditions and circumstances to be included in our or in Maori decision with this regard. Thank you very much, Engineer, for your addition. And I might end by this question, which is related to what is the duration of the project and when do you expect to have such system or Uipms unified and the investment planning and monitoring system is running, and how do you guarantee its sustainability and effectiveness? Or if there are any measures you are considering to such guarantee. Mr. Rob, if you have the mic is yours.
Yes, thank you. And that is again an excellent question. First of all, when do we think it will be working? Will be implemented? Next year, so 2021, will be a key year for us to develop the Uipms and develop and test and implement it on the go. That will be somehow an iterative process, I expect. The issue of sustainability is crucial, and we don't want to come in and add something that is completely out of the box, new to the ministry, and hope that it lands and then leave again. That's not how it works. Sustainability is key, and therefore also we really try to use as much as possible the existing systems that are already there. We are moreover adopting or improving the existing systems in a way to better adhere to the processes that exist, but that also will be, so the planning process that will also be enhanced so that the IT systems and the planning process are fully aligned. That generates automatically a demand for the systems to be used. So that is also key for sustainability. If there's no demand for them to be used, then they will vanish and be discontinued. So the usability should be optimized in order for the tools to be sustainable. And moreover, we try to maximize the co-development of the digital solutions with the ministry. So the ministry's IT department or IT unit has a crucial role in developing the overall Uipms. And that is the best guarantee for sustainability.
Excellent, Mr. Rob, and thank you for answering this question.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I would finish with one last question with this round with regard to the considered arrangements for the integration with the e-government and the new capital transition to new capital, and what are if there is any kind of arrangements or considerations you are taking to integrate the system of the ministry within the whole system of the e-government within the new capital. More elaborations on this, but shortly, please, would be highly appreciated, Mr. Rob.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's also a very nice one. Basically, we work through the IT people of the ministry and the people who are responsible for the ministry for collaborating with the e-government development that is taking place at a governmental level. So we don't do that directly. No, this really goes through the ministry's IT people, and that's also again crucial for sustainability and for success.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Rob. I have to stop here for this round, and many thanks for your valuable and informative presentation and the knowledge you presented with regard to the Ndbc JISA project, and mainly on the work package of JISA approach. Thank you very much, Mr. Rob.
Shukran, Gamil.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving forward, according to our agenda, I would gently like to ask Engineer Mohammed Al-Absi to present us or to introduce a general brief of the second work package of NDP3 under the NDP3 JISA project. Engineer Mohammed Al-Absi, it's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to join you in this third successful annual conference, Cairo Water Week, and this technical session. I will give you background about IBAD's effort on controlled drainage as an introduction to the coming valuable presentation for Dr. Hank on controlled drainage. I wanted to mention some points. First, the Committee for Controlled Drainage that forward by a decree signed by the Undersecretary of Ministry, shared by the Central Head of Field Investigation and the desire for subsurface in IBAD, and the following members. The Central Head of Water Affairs in Irrigation Authority. Second, the Center Head of Improvement in Project, and the General Director of Drainage Awareness General Directorate in IBAD, and the General Director of Use of Water Resource General Directorate, the Planning Sector. Minister of Water Irrigation, UN. The General Director of Agriculture Cost Follow-up in IBAD. Assistant Professor in the Drainage Research Institute. They will have to take in consideration the following. Number A, concept with a visible cost to facility convincing farmers and take their agreement for implementation. Number 2, highlight the controlled drainage benefits such as safe irrigation water and reduce the total amount of fertilizers, and as a result, money will be saved. In addition, to reduce the drain water salinity also. Find a low cost and either maintenance method that make the farmers more responsive and can operate the system in a good way. Moreover, spread awareness between farmers. And study the idea of using open drain for the total area in case of applying the crop rotation. Point 2, attempts to introduce the concept of modified irrigation system, the drainage system, all over the country in order to various soil types and crops and weather. Number 3, committee achievement, committee of the controlled drainage. The 3 committee meetings were held since it 4 determined 3 pilot area, 50 Faddan per issue in the 3 various regions, West Delta and East Delta and Upper Region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Mohammed Al-Arsi, for your input and highlights and remarks on the first work package under NDP3 JISA project. I will, before moving forward to our next great presentation with the great presenter, Dr. Hank, I would just like to give a note to our great attendees. Please, I am urging you all great attendees, when sending a question, please select general. Don't select private questions. In order for all panelists to see the question, please. So whenever you write a question in the Q&A window, just please select it in general, not private, in order for us or for all panelists to see the question. And also, if you still need to write the question in Arabic, go ahead, please, and I will manage to also answer this question. Okay? So before leaving the mic to Dr. Hank, I would like just to humbly or honorably introduce Dr. Hank for the coming presentation. Dr. Hank has actually 40 years of experience in water management and hydrology for food and ecosystems with specialization in the management of agricultural lands. His passion combines research with education and advisory services to bridge the gap between explicit scientific knowledge and the tacit or local knowledge of the end users. Dr. Hank was in many research programs on the improvement of waterlogged and salt-affected lands in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Also, he is the author of various handbooks and numerous scientific publications and guest lecture in several master's courses. Currently, he is the international irrigation and drainage expert in the Ndbc JISA project. Please join me welcoming Dr. Hank. Dr. Hank, it's over to you, sir. The mic is yours.
Good afternoon. It is a great pleasure for me to present you this presentation on controlled drainage. Rob already told that the project is quite huge and is involving many aspects, and I'm now going to talk a little bit more on the implementation side of the project, and that is on controlled drainage, the potential, the challenges to introduce controlled drainage in the NDP3 project areas. Rob already explained all the partners that are involved in the project, so I will skip this, and I will focus on controlled drainage. As you all know, that Egypt is very successful in implementing subsurface drainage systems. Almost all agricultural lands have been provided by subsurface drainage systems since the 1970s, and the program was quite successful. Now, this system consists mainly out of buried collector, lateral and collector drains, discharging in open drains with free outflow conditions, and as a consequence, the open drains are quite deep to maintain those free outflow conditions. Now, so then the question is, if this system is so successful, what is the need for more control? Now, that is because the world is changing, and that means that in Egypt there is a need to diversify the cropping patterns. So farmers want to grow different crops. They want to grow more vegetables, more high-yielding crops, etc., etc. And that means that the drainage needs has to be based on this diversifying cropping patterns. The second challenge is that we all know that Egypt has to save irrigation water. And to save irrigation water, the field irrigation methods are changing. But that also means that the field drainage methods, the subsurface drainage methods, have to match these changing field irrigation methods. Another reason why more control is needed, that by the conventional drainage system, not only the salts are leached out of the soil, but also the nutrients. And to save nutrients, more control in the system is needed. And the last reason why more control is needed, that because farmers, they know those needs to control the drainage. They know the needs to save irrigation water. So they, in the existing system, they already try to create more control. But the system is not built for this. So that means the maintenance needs, the maintenance costs are increasing because farmers are doing this, in principle, illegal blocking of the system. So, what is more control? On the left-hand side, you can see the conventional system, where the field laterals and the collectors are draining freely in the open collector drain. And those collector systems can be very big, up till 1,000 fadan. And in these collectors, different crops are grown. And in the conventional system, the drainage is the same for all those crops. And if you want to make control for different fields, you have to build in control in your system. So sometimes you want to have higher water tables, sometimes you want lower water tables, so you want to build control in your system. Now to do this is quite complex, because I want to show you that in Egypt many different crops are grown. And all those crops, they have different rooting depths and water table requirements, varying for very shallow water tables for, of course, rice, where you want to have no drainage at all, to other crops. But you see that all those crops, they have different water table depths and requirements. Not only different water table depths, but also they need different soil salinity levels. So each of those crops have different leaching requirements. Some crops are very sensitive to soil salinity, like beans, and other crops are much more tolerant. So that means that every crop has its own leaching requirement and thus drainage requirement. To give you an example, this is, as you all know, that in Egypt, in the delta, a 3-year crop rotation is practice. Each crop has its own irrigation water requirements and leaching requirements. And you can see here on the left-hand side that in the current practice, the total irrigation water used for those 3 crops is something like 3,800 millimeters. And the leaching is quite big. For some crops, there is hardly any leaching, like you can see in the cotton season, there is a slight increase in salinity, the same for the berseem season, but especially during the maize and the rice season, a lot of leaching is taking place. And this is not optimum. And when you try to optimize the irrigation water requirements with the leaching requirements, you can see that you can save considerable amounts of irrigation water. On average, something like 20% of irrigation water can be saved when you can introduce controlled drainage. So the potential to save irrigation water by controlled drainage is quite big. But to change from conventional to controlled drainage, there are challenges. You have to match the drainage system with the crop grown in an area. And what I said, till now in a conventional system, different crops are grown in the command area of one collector. For example, in the summer season, cotton, maize and rice. And if you want to match your drainage requirements with your crops, you have to subdivide your collector in sub-collectors, and in those sub-collectors the same crops have to be grown. There is already a lot of research done on experience with controlled drainage in Egypt. And those results of those research are quite favorable. Indeed, it has been found in many pilot areas that you can save a lot of water, up till 40% for rice, but also for other crops. And you can not only save on the water, but you can also save on you can save on the fertilizer, because when you reduce outflow, you can also save on fertilizers, and you can reach up till 25% reduction in fertilizer use. And the controlled drainage does not go to the expense of crop yields. Depending on the crop, there is even a slight increase between 0 and 10%. Of course, this varies very much between where it is happening and the farmers, but in principle, even crop yields increase because you improve the water conditions in the root zone. And because of these, farmers are in principle positive, but they are also reluctant because they think there will be extra cost to implement the system. There will be extra cost because they have to work together on the crop consolidation. And so there is reluctance by farmers for the introduction of this controlled drainage. And the last experience with controlled drainage, and we should not forget this one, is that by controlled drainage we reduce drainage outflows and we get a better leaching efficiency, but that means that the total amount of drainage water will go down and the salinity of the drainage water will increase. So that, we should remember, is the cost of controlled drainage, increased salinity of the drainage water. Now, what are the requirements to introduce controlled drainage? In principle, there are three major requirements. First of all, we have seen that we want to, with controlled drainage, we want to match the irrigation with the drainage. So that means we have to match the irrigation units with the sub-collector units. That has to be done during the design stage of drainage. Secondly, within a unit, there should be a voluntary crop consolidation because we can, in one unit, then not grow, for example, rice in combination with a dry food crop like maize or cotton or vegetables. And of course, the third requirement is that we have to introduce control in the system. And overall, that means that farmers' participation is much more needed in the design, the operation, and the maintenance of the system. So the benefits can be used but farmers should be willing to cooperate. Because then, depending on the type of crop, they can decide to have different levels in the system. When they want to grow rice, you want to have a high water level in your system, and you can control the water table at a high level. When you want to grow other crops, the water table in the system has to be lowered. As Engineer Al-Absi already told, that APAT has established a drainage committee to help to introduce controlled drainage in NDP projects. And he already explained that the main tasks of this committee is to see if the efforts of controlled drainage can be done in combination with other projects. For example, the Egyptian-Dutch Delta Cooperation Program is proposing also a program on the controlled drainage. And we are looking for options to combine that with the NDP program. Then this committee has to data mine the pilot area locations and the size for these controlled drainage efforts. And of course they have to study the implementation. If controlled drainage is beneficial, if it's costing less, and if the benefits of controlled drainage are indeed achieved. Now, to summarize, what are the challenges for controlled drainage? We have seen that participation of farmers is needed to adjust the cropping pattern. But not only participation of farmers is needed, also cooperation between the irrigation, agricultural and drainage extension authorities. Because farmers need to work together, they have to match their cropping patterns, they have to match their irrigation water requirements, and then they can only match their drainage requirements. But beside that, we need tools to control this drainage outflow. How can we control the outflow? Where in the system? And finally, we have to match the irrigation and the drainage requirements to maintain the leaching requirements. What I said, participation is needed on the cropping pattern. Within one controlled unit, farmers are not anymore allowed to grow rice next to a dry food crop like maize or cotton or vegetables. So they have to agree that they do that. So a voluntary crop consolidation at sub-collector level is needed. And that means this cooperation in extension, which is also a challenge because farmers have to work with those 3 extension officers from the irrigation department, from the agricultural department, and from the drainage department. And this should be a joint effort. So those extension authorities have to work together to a higher extent. Then we have to develop the best methods to control drainage. Of course, you can do it manually, which is relatively easy and can be done by the farmers. But how to do that? That means extension is needed. You can make semi-automatic systems, or you can make fully automatic systems. What are the best systems? Again, that depends, of course, where in the system you are going to do that. So that is still a challenge to work out in more detail. And then the last but not the least thing is that you have to match the irrigation and the drainage requirements to manage the leaching requirements. You can improve irrigation efficiency by introducing sprinklers or drip, but in the end you have still to leach. So that means that is always the balance that you have to make sure that you meet the leaching requirements. So these are the potential and the challenges to introduce controlled drainage in Egypt. It has been tried out on pilot scale, but now we want to introduce it in the NDP projects in larger experimental plots. So we hope that you can give us ideas and suggestions how to best do this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Super. Thank you very much to you, good sir. Dr. Hank.
Yes.
Presentation and valuable information and quickly control the drainage. And also, I would like to thank you for your dedication to be with things turned out soonest for the good for you. As also, again, to stress again on my previous note for our great attendees, please, again, if you have any question, provide the question to all panelists, rather to private or privately. So, as a quick brief to the informative presentation presented by Dr. Hank, we are actually talking on the controlled drainage in Egypt, and that there is a need for such technique or concept to be included with our irrigation and drainage system in Egypt. That's actually because it increases first the yield, also in terms of saving water, reducing nutritional losses, and reducing maintenance. And still, with all its benefits and returns, we still have some challenges, as mentioned by Dr. Rob, related to the participation needed for the adjustment of cropping pattern, cooperation between irrigation extension and drainage extension authorities. This is also a very important point to be considered. New tools to control drainage outflow, and matching irrigation and drainage to maintain the leaching requirements. And finally, actually, that farmers are actually positive to the concept. However, they are somehow reluctant because of the extra cost for management, maintenance, and crop rotation. And there are also many interventions and practices that are taken by the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, represented in the EBAD with regard to initiating committees in order to facilitate and make it available with regard to such concept of controlled drainage. So let me take some questions from our great attendees to Dr. Hank. Dr. Hank, actually, there's a question from Mr. Muhammad Yusuf asking about what are the operational management needs to guarantee irrigation modernization?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Regarding the operational aspects of irrigation and drainage in controlled drainage, the main thing is that it should be based on the crop water requirements and the leaching requirements. So depending on the type of crop that is grown, we know the irrigation water requirements, we know the required depth of the water table, and we know the leaching requirements. So that means then for this crop, the control level has to be set at a level that is suitable for this crop to grow. So when you grow rice or vegetable, you can have higher water tables, so you can raise the level in your drainage system. When you grow crops that need a deeper water table, like cotton or maize or wheat, you lower the water level in your drainage system. So it depends on the crop on which crop is grown in the season, to what level you set your drainage system, but it also depends on the cropping stage. In the beginning of a crop stage, you want to have a higher water table because you don't want to lose too much irrigation water. So also depending on the growing stage, you can adjust the water level in your drainage system. So it depends on the growing stage and on the type of crop. And not only the water level, but then in combination with your irrigation, your leaching requirements. Some crops can have, during the season, they can accept a slight increase in soil salinity, so you can reduce your drainage rates during the periods that you have peak irrigation demands. But that means that then you have to leach more in periods that you have excess water available. But you can see that, controlling the drainage levels depends on the type of crop and the integration with the irrigation water requirements. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was very clear, actually, Dr. Hank. Again, I have a question from Daib on NISA, asking, may I know some large experimental sites in Egypt, because he or she might miss site names during the presentation, Dr. Hank. The question is about the large experimental sites in Egypt that are running or are under consideration.
Yeah, there have been research in several sites in both the Nile Delta in the east and in the west. I don't know those names by heart at the moment, but I will make sure you get them later on. But the main thing is, if we want to try this controlled drainage at a larger scale, what I said, one of the requirements is that we have to match the sub-irrigation unit with a sub-drainage unit. And that means that there should be a minimum size of this experiment. And we think at the moment we want to try it. The minimum size for a sub-collector should be something like 50 fadan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hank. And sorry for this, back again to the previous question, because we have another response from Mr. Mohammed Yusuf with regard to your answer. He's asking, does this mean that we need water level control systems in the drains and operational systems to manage this?
Yeah, so we need a water control in the drainage system, and let's say the smallest level we can do that is at sub-collector level. And because one of the challenges in Egypt is that a drainage system is always covering fields of more than one farmer. What I said, the minimum level of a sub-collector can be something like 50 fadan. Now we know that all farmers have plots that are much smaller, sometimes only 1 fadan or something like that. That means, so in one sub-collector you have at least 20 or more farmers. And those farmers have to work together because that is the smallest unit we can control the water table. We cannot control the water table under one drain, because even if you control it on one drain, the next drain will still flow out. So there is a minimum level of control, and that is what I say, something like 50 fadan.
Okay, great. There is another question, Dr. Hank, with regard to the enhancement of filtration. And another one with regard to the salinity drainage increase, and whether this is an advantage or disadvantage of the controlled drainage system. So one question with regard to the filtration and how it is enhanced. Could you elaborate more on this, please? And the second is related to the salinity drainage increase, whether it's an advantage or disadvantage with the system.
The first question related to the Fertilization?
Yes, filterization, yes.
Fertilizer.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Yeah, the point is that that in the current system, part of the fertilizers are leached out of the rooting zone, and they are ending up in the drainage water. And yeah, at the moment there's no possibility to avoid that. The only way to avoid that is to stop your drainage in the period after you have, or after the farmer has fertilized their crops. So by controlling drainage during the season, and especially during periods after the farmer has applied fertilizer, you can save on the fertilizer. And in the pilots that has been researched, this saving of fertilizer is in the order of magnitude of 25%. Regarding the salinity of the drainage water, at the moment...
So Dr. Hank, sorry. So for the filterizers, it's all about elongating the water with fertilizers in the soil rather than leaching it quickly to the drainage. So the drainage main concept is to keep it as long as possible for the crops to benefit from such fertilizers. Thank you for this answer. Yes?
Because the crop takes up the fertilizer through the roots, so the fertilizer is always infiltrating in the soil with the percolating irrigation water. At the moment, part of this percolation is disappearing as drainage in the system, so taking part of the fertilizers. If you can stop this drainage, you stop the leaching of the fertilizer.
Yes, thank you. The next question with regard to salinity drainage.
Yeah, what I showed you in the current practice, the leaching fraction is something like 25%. That means that 25% of the irrigation water is lost as drainage, taking all the salts. So the system is efficient at the moment, but it costs a lot of irrigation water. And you can reduce the drainage losses, but you don't want to lose your leaching requirements. So if you increase your irrigation efficiency, automatically the salinity of your drainage water will increase to make sure that you leach out all the salts from the root zone. So an improved irrigation efficiency means lower drainage rates, but still you have to remove all the salts. So automatically then the salinity of the drainage water will increase. But again, this depends on the crop you are growing and the season you are doing it. So in some parts of the season, the salinity of the drainage water will be higher than in the other part of the season.
Okay, great. This is a quick question from my side, actually, and please quickly, if you have a response quickly to me, with regard to the main difference quickly between the subsurface irrigation and the controlled drainage, or they might be integrated in one system. The possibility of that, or how do you think about it?
It is indeed possible to combine sub-irrigation with controlled drainage, because you are doing the same. But the main thing, of course, is that sub-irrigation should be designed and based on the crop water requirements. And we all know that the crop water requirements, especially in Egypt in summer, they can be up till 7-8 millimeters per day. So you need quite a big capacity in your sub-irrigation system. And your drainage requirements the leaching requirements are smaller. They are less than 1 millimeter per day. So the controlled drainage system, if you use that for sub-irrigation, the capacity will not be enough. You need then to make a higher capacity in the system to completely satisfy your crop water requirements by sub-irrigation. But of course, by introducing controlled drainage and sub-irrigation in your control or in your subsurface drainage system, you are reducing your surface irrigation water requirements. So by combining, you can optimize your water use.
Maximizing the benefits and returns, actually. Thank you very much, Dr. Hank, for this valuable information and technical information with regard to controlled drainage. I would like just quickly to ask Engineer Rob. Do you hear me, Engineer Rob? I would like just to get back for you for 1 minute, please.
I do hear you, Dr. Ahmed, yes.
Yes, please, because we missed a question, but now it's here from Mr. Adil Bishara. He is asking, this is a very ambitious project. This is very ambitious project as far as the communication and coordination are concerned. What are the main encountered problems and what are the suggested solutions? But in 1 minute, please.
That's a tricky one. I think the main encountered problems must be that at current the horizontal communication, even within the ministry, is limited for kinds of reasons. Probably for reasons of focus, because different entities are really focused on doing what they have to do, carrying out their own mandate. But when water resources are becoming more and more scarce, it's more and more important to get to that efficiency level that also Dr. Henk explained. And that requires cooperation. So we are in need of more cooperation and coordination now than in the past. And suggested solutions include that we work with a common data environment so that everybody uses the same source of truth, and that the communication needs to be much easier. So with digital support like we have now, for example. Did I stay within my minute?
Thank you very much, as usual. Thank you. Before ending the session, I am just kindly asking each of our esteemed panelists if you want to add something in 1 minute before the session. Go ahead, please. Starting by Dr. Sandra, if you want to add something. Dr. Sandra?
Yes, I'm here. So first of all, thank you to the presenters. It was really also impressive and interesting for me to hear what is going on in the NDP3 project and also on controlled drainage. I think we will follow up. We are very interested also to implement controlled drainage system.
Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Sandra. Engineer Walid, you want to add anything?
I just want to thank you, Ahmed, for moderating this session efficiently and in time, and to thank the presenters, Rob and Henk, for their excellent presentations. And as Sandra said, I mean, we will have something out of this session that will follow up in the coming weeks. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Engineer Walid. Engineer Rob, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would agree with previous speakers to thank you for your excellent chairing of this session. And even though this is a virtual Water Week, I'm really looking forward to coming to Cairo next week to work with you in person again, with all of you, all of the team, Walid, etc. So looking forward.
Thank you very much.
And good luck with the rest of the Water Week.
Yeah, sure. And many thanks for your kind words, Engineer Rob. Engineer Mohammed Al-Absi, you want to add anything?
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Mohammed Al-Absi. Thank you. Dr. Hank, you want to add anything?
I just want to add that if people want to know more, we have prepared a technical note on controlled drainage. So everybody who wants to have that, just send us an email and we will provide you with this technical note. And then I want to thank you for sharing this meeting. It was a pleasure to join it, and I look forward for the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's our pleasure, sir. Thank you very much. So coming to the end, I would like to thank all our great audiences for their appreciated participation, valuable interactions through the questions. And thanks also actually is due to our esteemed panelists and all NDP3 JISA relevant staff for all their efforts geared towards the project. And finally, special appreciation actually is also due to the session technical supporting team behind the scene, Engineer Mona Maher and Engineer Mohammed Salah and all others for all their efforts to have such successful event. Thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you next week physically with more advancement, with more lessons, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.